All right, you guys. So we're gonna continue where we left off in the previous video. So here is with the question. So we're gonna use the above graph to answer the following questions. So we did go ahead. So whenever you see something like this, right, in an exam or in a worksheet or anything like that, what I like to do is I like to label everything that I have. So for example, the first one's the y thing. The y variable, the second one's my x, right? So this my y is my response, my x is my explanatory variable, the third one is the regression equation. That way I know what's what, right? Okay, so what is the first question asked? What is a regression equation? Okay, well, you can go ahead, you can do it this many different ways. You can go ahead and just copy paste this thing, right? Whoops, what did I do? I'm an eraser. You can go ahead, let me click something different. Let me click blue. Okay, so you can go ahead and just copy paste this regression equation and just say that, or you can just go ahead and write this too. It doesn't really matter. So I can just go ahead and say, what was it, 34.67.39. So I can write test grade equals, what was it, 34.6, was it? 34.6 plus 7.3, what was it, 49? Oh, I should really trust myself. Okay, 49 and then times hours. So in order to get full credit, make sure that you write the whole thing down. Now, one of the questions that you might be asking yourself is like, okay, so how many sig figs? Now, you can go ahead and write all those numbers down. Usually, I will let you know in the exam how many sig figs I want. Okay, so right now, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it like this. Usually, I'm not really being very consistent in it, but because if I have one sig fig here, I should have one over here, but I'm just going to go ahead and leave it like that. Another way that you can write it, so that's one way. Another way, you can just go ahead and say y hat equals 34.6 plus 7.349 times hours. Okay, and that's how you can write it too. Or you can substitute the hours for x if you want. Whatever floats your, oh, what happened to my 9? Okay, times x. You can write it like this if you want to. So I don't really care. Just make sure that you know that x is going to stand for hours and your y hat is going to be for your predicted test grade. Okay, so just keep track of that. Okay, and that's basically it. That's it for the first question. Okay, the second question says, suppose that you study for 2 hours. Use the regression equation to find the predicted test score. So if I only had 2 hours to study, what would I get? Okay, so remember, I'm just going to use my regression equation. Y hat equals 34.6 plus 7.349 times 2. Okay, so this is where you actually have to go to your calculator and calculate this. So I have a calculator right here. I don't have it on my laptop, unfortunately, but I'm just going to go ahead and multiply this together, check my work, and what I'm going to get is approximately, and I'm going to write approximately 42.298. Whoops, no, 49. I cannot read. So this is about 49, okay? So I'm going to say around 49.3. This is what I am expecting to get in the exam, which is not very good, right? If I only studied for 2 hours. But this is what the regression equation is saying. So if I were to go ahead and go back here, right, at 2, right, 2 hours, right, well, what it's predicting is whatever is in the line, right? That's basically what it's doing because I'm using the equation of the line. Now, if you notice, it's not quite the true value because the true value is up here, right? So we do have some error. Okay, so now the next question says, if the true score was 51 for 2 hours, find the residual, the error of using the regression equation. Okay, now make sure that you are very careful when you're using the equation of the residual. So if you remember, let's go up here. The residual was E equals the true value minus the predicted value. Okay, so true minus predicted. So E is equal to true value minus the predicted value. Okay, so the true value, right, was 51 hours because this is what the true test score is. What is my predicted score? Well, we went ahead and looked it up right here. It's 49.3. Okay, so what is going to be my error? Well, when I subtract these two together, right, what I'm going to get is approximately 1.7. Okay, So we were just off by 1.7, which isn't that bad, right? But, you know, it really depends on what you really are measuring. But in this case, it's test scores, so it doesn't seem like a really bad thing. Okay. Now, interpret the slope and the y-intercept according to the scenario. Okay, so now we want to go ahead and interpret what these numbers mean. Okay, so if I go back up here, right, let's go ahead and look at my y-intercept. So my y-intercept in this case, so let me just write it here. My y-intercept was 34.6, and my slope was 7.349. Okay, so basically what it's saying is that what exactly do these numbers mean? Okay, so don't just say, oh, this is what it is, right? Well, what the heck are they? What do they mean? Okay, so if you need to go back to the beginning and where it says what the meanings of slope and intercept are, then you can go ahead and read it there, right? Or look at the previous video. But basically, I'm just going to go ahead and write it down. So y-intercept is pretty easy to identify, right? So y-intercept says, so for y-intercept, right, what this is telling us, right, so this means that when x is equal to 0, in this case, what is our x? Our x is the hours. So if I study for 0 hours, my predicted test score is what? Well, it's just this, 34.6. That is what I'm expected to get. If I don't study at all, that is what I'm gonna get, a 34.6%. That's what it is. And you know, that seems very feasible, right? I mean, really depends, right? But I mean, that's just what this graph is telling us. Right? If you get a 0, that's what you're gonna get. Okay. Now, what is the slope telling us? Okay. So the slope is telling us, right, 7.349. So what the slope means is for every 1 unit I increase x, how much is my y increasing? So for every 1 hour I study for the test, how much am I increasing my test score? Well, you guessed it, 7.349. I increase my test score by 7.349. Well, in this case, I think it was percentage points. That's basically what it is. Okay, so for every 1 unit of an x, in this case it was my hours, I study for the test, I increase, right? So if this was negative, I would actually decrease. So I increase what? My test score by this amount of units. And that's basically it, right? So you just need to be able to, if you want to copy paste this thing, you can go ahead and copy paste it, right? For your next, for any other questions. But this is basically what I'm looking for when I'm looking for interpretation. Like, what exactly am I doing? What is this scenario telling me to do? What do these numbers mean? Okay. All right, let's do this other question. So suppose that we want to predict the total cost of a word processing job in terms of the number of hours. Okay. So here is where it can be a little bit weird, because you're going to be thinking about what is X and what is Y. After gathering data, we determined the regression equation to be this. So it doesn't tell you what X is and it doesn't tell you what Y is. So the key word that you want to really be looking for is in terms of. In terms of, usually it's ready to tell you what the X value is. So usually the first thing that they tell you is the Y in terms of the X. So in this case, my Y value is the word processing job, or the total cost of the word processing, right? So this is the total cost. So I can just go ahead and write that. My Y hat is going to be my total cost. And my X is going to be the number of hours. So in this case, I didn't really give you the graph. I just gave you the regression equation itself, right? So you just need to be able to look for those keywords. In terms of, the next thing that's going to occur is just going to be the X. All right. So in this case, what is my slope? Okay. So my slope in this case, remember, if you want to go ahead and write slope, you can go write slope. If you want to go ahead and write B1, B1 stands for our slope also. My slope is 20, right? Because remember, 20 is the number in front of the x. And my y-intercept, in this case, is going to be my 25. That's 25. It's going to be my B0. That's it. So I just want you to identify them. Okay? Now interpret it. Okay? So how are we going to go ahead and interpret my x? Okay? So think about it. What do you think I should be doing? Well, y-intercept is easy, right? Because my y-intercept will be what? Anyone? I'm talking to myself, obviously. So what happens? I'm such a weirdo. Okay, so this just means the total cost for a job. Oops. That's not what it is. The total cost for a job that takes 0 hours. So how much does it cost us for a job that takes 0 hours? Well, in this case, it's going to be, how much is it going to cost us? $25. Okay, that's what it is. Now, be very careful. Take the y-intercept with a grain of salt. It doesn't really mean that that's what it is. You have to also take into perspective, does this make sense, right? So really keep that in mind. All right, and what does slope mean? Slope in this case means, so remember, for every 1 unit increase in x, so in this case our x is hours, so for every hour, one hour increase, the total cost, what? In this case, well, my total cost what? Well, it increases, right? Because it's a positive. Increases by how much? $20. By $20. That's basically what it is. Okay? All right. Now, what is the total cost if the number of hours was 3 hours? Okay? This is a very simple problem because all we got to do is just plug in the value of 3. Okay? So we have y hat equals 25 plus 20 times 3. Okay? So what am I going to get in this case? Okay, so I think I should get 85. Okay, yes, 85. So $85. That's what I get. Okay, that's what I get. That's my predicted. Okay, is it the true value? No, it's not the true value. It's just my predicted. Calculate the residual if the true cost for a job to run 3 hours was $100. For some reason I can't read. Okay, so now remember residual, right? Residual is going to be E equals y minus y hat. My y in this case, so y, remember, this is a true value. What was the true value? So the true cost is 100 minus my predicted value. Well, the predicted one was 85. Okay, so how far was I off in this case? I was off by $15. So my residual now is $15. Okay. All right. So this is just another problem that we did, right? But this time it didn't give you the graph and it didn't tell you what x and y was. So we needed to make sure that we knew what in terms means, right? So whenever you see in terms, that means that the second thing is going to be your x value, right? And just make sure that you know how to interpret. This is the biggest thing, right? Just know, because one thing is you being able to do math, and the other thing is being able to explain what exactly this math means. Okay, so that's it for these 2 questions, right? In the next video, which is going to be our last video, we're going to talk about effectiveness of the line, okay, and how effective linear regression is. Okay.